An opera called The Dialogue of Memories premieres in Seattle on Sunday. It's based on a book of conversations between music journalist Howard Reich and the late Holocaust survivor and educator Elie Wiesel. Reich credits Wiesel with helping him better understand what his own parents went through as survivors of the Holocaust themselves. Here's our conversation. So we'll start at the beginning. You grew up in Skokie, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Tell us a little bit more about the community there.
Skokie was a unique place. In fact, whenever I travel around the world and I tell people I'm from Skokie, they know it. They know it. Skokie was a unique convergence of Holocaust survivors. The town is about 10 miles square, and in the 1970s and 80s, it's believed there were about 7,000 to 8,000 Holocaust survivors living there, more than any other municipality in the United States. And so there are many theories for why this is, but so many survivors came to Chicago because you get a job in Chicago. And before World War II, Jews were not allowed into most Chicago suburbs. There was these covenants keeping them out. But Skokie, after the war, amid this housing shortage, was trying to get survivors, get Jews into Skokie. And one told another, and this whole kind of silent community of survivors formed in Skokie and I think they felt they had safety in numbers.
And so talk a little bit about your childhood and how much your parents shared with you or didn't share with you about their experience in the Holocaust.
So I knew that both of my parents were survivors. That's about all I knew. My parents told me very little about it. Most of the literature says this was typical. Most survivors did not share the story with their children. I think they didn't want to burden their children with it. They said there's no words to describe what happened to them, and it's the worst part of their lives. They wanted to move on. So this was a subject not discussed much, certainly not in my family and in most families.
And music played a very important part early in your life. What did that mean to you?
Music changed my life because when I was 16 years old, I went downstairs in our little Skokie home and I turned on the TV and this movie came on. An American in Paris, music by Gershwin, Oscar Levant playing piano, Gene Kelly dancing, What's Not to Love? And at that moment I realized music had to be it for me. But also, too, there's a lot of turbulence in our house. And when I was playing the piano, practicing the piano, hitting that piano, I was not hearing a lot of that noise and that angst. That was my escape, was the world of music, and it has been ever since.
And you didn't know why that turbulence was there, right?
When I would get up in the middle of the night, my mother would be sitting in our living room looking out the window, and in fact kind of keeping a vigil, keeping us safe. I thought all moms did that. I had to reinterpret it. We were not allowed to take showers in our house, only a bath. Well, we know what the implication of showers for Holocaust survivors and those who did not survive were. The whole history was there, but I did not know how to interpret it as I was growing up.
And then in 2001, an incident happens with your mother. Describe that incident.
One night on February 15, 2001, my mother, who was then a 69-year-old widow living in the our little Skokie house, packed 2 shopping bags with clothes and ran out of the house for her life on the streets of Skokie. It was midnight. And she was picked up by the Skokie police, brought to a relative's house. Then the next day came home and she did it again. And I realized we have to put her in a safe place or we're going to lose her. And this was the beginning. This was when I finally had to confront what was happening. And I didn't understand at the time that what my mother was doing that night was retracing, reliving, and re-experiencing her Holocaust childhood, which was a childhood in flight. I didn't understand that at the time. I spent the next year trying to put it together to understand what she did that night.
And then you wrote about it.
I wrote a book. It became a big story in the Chicago Tribune, front page, 8-page special section called Prisoner of Her Past.
When that article came out, the Chicago Tribune then asked you if you would be interested in interviewing Mr. Wiesel, and then you became friends.
So this was many years later, but in 2012, the Tribune gave out this prestigious award, the Chicago Tribune Literary Award, and they gave it to these great luminaries like Arthur Miller, playwright, and other people like that. And they said to me they would like me to interview Elie Wiesel for this award. And I thought, wow, Elie Wiesel. I never even thought I would meet Elie Wiesel. He was this lionized Nobel Peace Prize laureate, the most revered Holocaust survivor in the world. And I spent time, interviewed him in New York, interviewed him in Chicago. And when I was saying farewell to him in Chicago as he was going back after we did this big public event, he said to me, "You've got my number, right? Your phone number." I said, "Mean your phone number in New York?" "Yeah." And he wanted to continue the conversation. And then I had this idea. This is a book. a survivor, a child of survivors trying to come to terms with the after effects. And I spent 4 years with Professor Wiesel in New York and in Florida, interviewing him with my tape recorder running. And the bottom line here, I was able to ask him questions I could not ask my parents, questions I didn't ask my parents.
The book that you wrote out of those conversations with Elie Wiesel, The Art of Inventing Hope, Intimate Conversations with Elie Wiesel. How did you choose that title, and what does inventing hope mean to you?
So that's a phrase that Professor Wiesel said in our interview. He said, my job as a writer, as a teacher, as a witness, is the art of inventing hope and to teach people to find hope even where there is no hope.
That book, The Art of Inventing Hope, became the inspiration for the opera called The Dialogue of Memories, which features 3 characters, Reich, Wiesel, and Reich's mother, Sonia. It's the second time Seattle-based Music of Remembrance has commissioned a work based on Reich's writing. He says the performance will bring opera-goers into the room where his conversations with Wiesel took place.
I think it's going to be an overwhelming experience to see Elie Wiesel portrayed and myself dealing with these issues, and my mother in the foreground, in the background, coming and going. I think it's an explosive combination. And when you add to this Tom Chiapullo's extraordinarily lyrical, soaring music, I cannot wait to hear and see this.
And what do you hope that people who attend this opera will get out of the experience?
I hope they'll get a sense of what it's like to receive the wisdom of Elie Wiesel, the wisdom of all he's experienced and applying his genius to his experience. To me, Elie Wiesel in his writing and his speaking is a kind of a poet. He's a poet of the Holocaust and a poet of what came after. And now, in addition to reading his books, you can hear the words issuing from him, soaring on Tom Chiapullo's music. And you can hear a son of survivors, me, asking the questions that survivors all over the world and children of survivors are asking, and grandchildren, and not just of the Holocaust. They're survivors of many kinds of traumas around the world. Genocides still continue. And we can all be in the room and share this experience at the same time. Elie Wiesel and my mother were never in the room were never together. They never met, except in my mind on the pages of my book and now in this opera. And I think that's just an eloquent combination. I can't wait for everyone to share that with me.
The opera is The Dialogue of Memories, presented by Music of Remembrance. The world premiere is Sunday at 4 o'clock at Benaroya Hall in Seattle. Howard, thanks so much for joining us.
It was an honor. Thank you.